Hello, my name is Nashire, and I'm a member of the Save Our Streets Youth Volunteer Team. We would like to thank you for coming and participating with us today for our City Council Candidate Forum. We appreciate the opportunity to engage with current and prospective city officials and elected leaders to express our concerns and issues as the youth of our city. Thank you, Damonni, Farley, and Marion Porterfield for coming today.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us.
Okay, so we're going to start by, what was it like in your community as a youth?
So do you want to
It doesn't.
just go?
Good.
So in my community, as a youth, it was good. I had a really good childhood. And growing up, I had a lot of protective factors, like, adults who were looking after me, if you will. My mother and father both worked full-time jobs, so my sister and I were what they used to call latchkey kids, meaning we'd come home from school and we would be there by ourselves until my mother and father got home from work. But why that was possible is because we had like good neighbors. Like my godparents lived next door, neighbors across the street, who were really close with my family and close with my parents. So that gave us my parents the opportunity to work and provide for us and know that we would still be looked after. For all intents and purposes, I had a really good childhood, really good upbringing, and I'm very fortunate. One of my only friends to have both parents being raised in a two-parent household, and that was very large impact on my life.
And what about you?
Well, my childhood was very good as well. I come from a family of 6. I have 5 siblings, and we're a close family, and come from a very supportive family and a very supportive mother. I was raised in a single-parent household for most of my life, but my mother was always there, very encouraging, saying that we could do anything we wanted to do. Just gave us whatever we needed to make those things happen. And also, like Mr. Farley has said, I grew up in a neighborhood where people looked out for each other, and there was nothing could happen if someone else's mother or father said to you, "Well, you can't do that." And you're not allowed to do that. And if you do that, I will tell your parents about it. And so you paid attention. You listened to the neighbors. You respected your elders, because that's just the way it was. Additionally, I spent a lot of time in church. And so in my church community, there was always things for young people to do, take us out bowling. It just wasn't about going to church, but taking them out different activities. And also, when I was growing up, there was a community center where I lived. So there was an opportunity to go to the community center and engage in all these different ways. And there were after-school programs, which I know still exist today. So for my childhood, I would say it was very well-rounded and had impact from numerous positive ways that helped me to develop to become an adult that was really proactive and really engaged in my community.
How did you become involved in politics?
Do you want me to take that one first too? All right, so for the last 15 years, I've been working in the human service field, doing a lot of community work. Something I've noticed through my community work is that a lot of times decisions are made for people and youth, such as yourself, and there hasn't been a lot of consideration to people's voice. So in other words, plans are being made for people and not with them. And Joe Allen was one of my mentors. He was actually the first man of color to be on the city council, and I used to sit and talk with him. And he's since passed on, but he was very influential, and he really invested in me. And when we would sit down and we would talk, he would say, "Yeah, you're gonna have to go on one day and make that leap and get involved into politics, and so you can start to be a part of the decision-making process and make sure that the people's voices are heard." So, after a long time of saying that, I would never do it, because there's so much, I would think, like negative things associated with being a politician. Here I am, trying to take a stand instead of just talking and complaining about things. Really want to make sure I'm in a position to make sure that people's voices are heard. So that's how I started.
How did you get involved in politics?
I got involved in politics because of my background, and I want to call it a community activist. I was and remain very involved in my community. I spent a lot of time at City Council. On the other side of the rail is what we call the rail, is where there's the audience and then there's the council members on the other side of the rail. So I spent a lot of time at the rail, bringing concerns, voicing what the community concerns were, and advocating for things that really needed to happen in the community. I felt a lot of that fell on deaf ears. And so when the opportunity came for me to actually run for office myself, I took it. Before actually running for office, though, I spent time preparing myself by becoming a committee person so I can know how it works and how things, how to get things done. So I spent time, doing that work and working on other people's campaigns, so I knew when it came time to work on my campaign that hopefully I would also have that level of support. And so when the opportunity presented itself, I then ran for office and was successful. Although I have to tell you, it wasn't easy. But when it's something worth doing, then you just give it all you got, and and hope for the best. And for me, it did work out well. And I should say that I had to run for the same office 3 times in 2 years. So it presented a challenge, but it was a challenge worth taking on, and one that I felt was extremely necessary for the community.
What are your thoughts on our current school systems? You can start this.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that our current school system there is room for improvement. I won't say it's failing. I will say that there's room for improvement. I am a muse in the schools, so that means I go into the schools. I have specifically go into Mount Pleasant Middle School, so I do spend some time in the schools. I think it's really important that the youth in our school get everything that they need in terms of making their learning environment as positive as possible. And I think that all schools should have the same benefits in terms of books, after-school programs, and also, and probably most of all, to make sure that they get the monetary support from the state, regardless of where the school is situated. I think that's extremely important because youth are our future. So I know there's been some advocating for that for the fiscal equity for our schools, and there has been some level of improvement, but I believe that we need more improvement, and it's really important that we have teachers who are committed to our children and who understand their challenges that they come with, their background. So I think it's also important that we have a diverse population who are engaging with our students.
And how about you?
So I look at this current state of our school district, and the thought that comes to my mind is to be not afraid of better, right? I use that term a lot. And what I mean by not afraid of better is that, there are some really good gains that are being made in our city school district as far as the graduation rate and more pro-social activities and programs for our students. However, I as well was on the team for, advocating for the right amount of funding for Schenectady City School District. So we did a lot of lobbying. We were marching, and we were writing letters, and we were doing all these things to advocate for the state to give Schenectady City School District the proper funding, which translates to more programs, more culturally responsive classrooms, and things that, protective factors that keep students in school. So in graduating. So I think and right now in my professional capacity, I still work towards that because I believe that's one of the most important things, and that's really has to be a main focus of everyone in the community. So I think that our current school district, we're making some gains. I mean, it's clear that the data shows that we're making some gains, but we're not afraid of better, and we have to do better, and our children of all people deserve our best. So until we're in a place where, we are exhausting all our options and fighting for every opportunity that we get for our kids, we'll still have work to do.
How do you gauge the success of our youth programs?
How do we gauge the success of the youth programs?
Yeah.
Well, I think that part of the youth, first of all, if it's a program that youth engage in, a lot of times adults develop programs for youth without youth input. So that just doesn't really work out well because I'm not going to go to something I'm not interested in. So for me, part of the way that we engage the importance of the outcome of youth programs is that youth are involved in developing the program, and youth are also engaged in the program. And at the end of it, that the young person that started the program when they've completed the program, you will see growth in that person, you will see an increase in confidence and all the things that it takes to make a successful person in life. So for me, those are really, really important factors in gauging whether a program is successful or it's not. Not just having people come, or having 10 as opposed to 50 come to a program, but the level of engagement of youth, the level of their input, and the level of development that they've received at the end of the program.
So, for me, I think the most simple way to gauge a youth program is to ask the youth. I think we have to be intentional about, when we have a program and a program is designed to help a youth in a certain area of life, or maybe all across the gamut, we have to set goals with youth, right? Not for them, with them, and then as that youth moves through that program and upon completion, we need to do some exit surveys. I mean, that was something that happens in the professional field that I think is very powerful. You sit down with a youth and say, hey, you were involved in this program. This is what we set out to do at the beginning. Have we done that? What do we do really good? And what are some of the things that we can do better so the next youth that is enrolled in this program has an even better experience than you? So I think our youth programs, in Schenectady, there's a lot of them. Believe it or not, Schenectady is not a place where there's any lack of programming, but the effectiveness, the quality of programming is something that we have to take a closer look at as adults. And we need to do that through the lens of our youth, with our youth.
What is your take on bullying in our schools and online? You can start.
Sure. So bullying is something that is constantly underestimated in every setting. I think people don't understand the lasting effects of bullying. And social media, Facebook, these things really ramp up the bullying. They make it, they allow people to bully people from a safe space, if you will. Mm-hmm. And what it does is that it just creates the conditions for bullying to fester and to increase. And there's, literally students, young people who have took their own lives due to bullying. And the only way to stop bullying is to teach our kids how to advocate for themselves in a safe way, is to call it out when we see it, and is to believe students and not to brush it under the rug with the traditional boys will be boys, or, oh, that's just how kids are. Mm-hmm. As adults, when we say things like, oh, that's just how kids are, we're now becoming a willing participant in removing the accountability and lower the expectation of our students, and we can't do that. And we can't do that not just in school, I mean the community. Social media has created a platform which is very powerful, but if you're not conducting yourself with integrity while on social media, bullying is something that happens often, too often, and we better start listening to kids and kind of the writings on the wall, and it's been for some time now. This is not just another issue. This is actually an issue of life or death. So it's something I take extremely serious, and I've worked for a long time and very tirelessly with a lot of different people to address that issue, and I'll continue to do so.
And how do you feel?
Well, I think that bullying, first of all, it happens on many levels, and it obviously happens a lot with our youth. And really, it's really a way of attacking somebody, but in a more passive way. And and people don't realize the damage that they're doing mm-hmm. to people when they're saying very negative things about them. So I think bullying. I know that bullying needs to be addressed, but and also young people, everyone actually needs to speak up when they're being bullied, because bullying just doesn't happen to young people. It happens to adults and among adults. Mm-hmm. So it's something that we should really address in our society, so that even as a young person who does that, they need to realize why it's not okay to do that, and what mm-hmm. you're doing to other people, and how it, if it's happening to you, that you should speak out about it. Right. Because a person can't help with someone with a problem if they don't know it exists. And we need to send the message that bullying is not okay. It's not okay to do. It's not okay to accept. And really, we all need to remember that Everyone in this world is facing some kind of problem every single day. They may not say it. So it's really behooves us and creates a better society if we just spend time being kind to the other person.
Right.
Period. You may not like the other person. We all know that there's people in life that we don't like, but that's not a reason to be mean to them. That may be a reason that doesn't become your best friend. But let's just make sure that we don't do negative things to hurt them, because we wouldn't want that to happen to us. We should always treat people the way you want to be treated. At least that's how I feel about it.
And if I could add on that, I would also say that, often we look at bullying as a one-way interaction, but actually what happens is that usually the person who is the bully is doing so usually because that's a problem within themselves, right? They might have been the victim of another bully, or it might be a way to kind of offset a low self-esteem, or they might feel like this is what makes them relevant in today's world. So what we have to do is also we have to hold bullies accountable, but we have to figure out the why behind the behavior. And don't just deal with the bullying. Let's deal with the bullying, but then also let's think about, let's find out the reason why this person is doing that. And that is with youth and adults as well. So we can't throw out the whole person with adjusted behavior, but we really need to work with the person as well to find out why they're doing these things.
If elected, what would be the first thing you would do? How about you, Sarah?
If elected was the first thing I would do? Well, let me just give that a little thought, because I am an incumbent, which means I've been on the council for 5.5 years. So I would definitely continue working on the things I'm working on. For me, it's really extremely important for neighborhood revitalization, to make sure that our neighborhoods are included in the renaissance which is happening in downtown. We're actually situated in downtown right now, which has just gotten more and more beautiful, but part of that needs to happen in our neighborhoods as well, so that our neighborhoods we make sure that continues to work into our neighborhoods. Definitely I would be advocating for that. Another one, a major concern I have, is the homeless that we have in our community, and how do we address the homelessness in our city. We did a project called Breathing Lights. I'm not sure if you know what that's about, but Breathing Lights was to bring attention to, first of all, to the blight. I was involved in that, and then to do something about it. And as a part of that process, we did an art presentation with young people, and we had young people engaged. And one of the questions that they asked is, if we have all these empty homes, why do we have so many homeless people? So that has stayed with me. That really resonated with me. So a major part of that is, how do we address that? There's a Green and Healthy Homes initiative. There's a lot going out here in terms of housing, but we have to make sure that all that housing that's going on, that we're developing, that there are not homeless people in our society. So that for me is one of the major focuses as I move on in my career as a councilwoman.
So I guess first thing I would do is look at some of the policy and procedures of how we, as a local government, are getting information out to the people, and how what's our mechanisms for feedback. So we have to really look at how these conversations are happening, where they're happening, and how effective are we communicating with our constituents. That's something that I will focus on immediately. In fact, I'm focusing on it now. I'm not waiting to be an elected official to have an impact on my community. And that's really an important message that the youth need to hear, and we need to listen to hear from them. Is like, you don't have to wait until you're in a position that allows you to be in a decision-making capacity. We still, as citizens, we just have to decide our own fate. And I think that for me, that means, let's look at how our meetings are ran, and where are we getting our information? Because I'm out here and I'm canvassing. That means I'm going around talking to voters, and I'm hearing a few things consistently. And one of the things I keep hearing is that people don't feel like their voices are being heard, or their interests aren't being represented. So we have to really look at that, because that's our number one priority function as a representative of the people, is to know what the people are asking for, and make sure that we're communicating things better. So that would be number one.
Okay, so we would like to thank each of you for taking the time to stop in and engage with us today. We felt it was important as youth of the city to meet with our prospective city council members and have a conversation pertaining to our issues and concerns as youth. We wish you luck in your campaign and thank you for coming.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to thank you for allowing me to be your guest. It's certainly been my pleasure, and I want to congratulate you as young people, all of you, the work that you're doing and bringing your voice to the table and engaging at such a young age. I think it's important because you are definitely our future, and I know that you're too young to vote, but I'm going to specifically ask that you ask your parents and all of those that are out there voting to please support me and vote for me on November 7th. I'd like to continue to be your public servant here in the city of Schenectady. So thank you again.
So I as well like to say thank you for having us here. It's very important that we get the youth perspective, and often that's a conversation that is left out of politics, quite frankly, because youth don't vote. However, you know, we have an obligation to honor everyone, and especially when we're making decisions that impact youth, youth have to be part of the conversation. So I want to commend you, you know, on inviting us and taking this very important role on as moderating this panel. This is election for me really sums down to really basic things, and that's about making plans with people instead of for people. I'll say that 100 times because that's the one thing that I see that's not happening the way it should. And when it's not happening the way it should, it impacts people's lives. And so all the good things that are happening in our city, as we see, you know, you shouldn't have to tune into this show to feel it, to know it. You should be able to feel it in your everyday existence. You know, you should see in your taxes lowering, in your neighborhood being cleaner, and, you know, having you know, just a better environment, a better quality of life. And if we are not at the point as a city where people can experience the good things that are happening, where we just kind of have to tell them, we got some work to do. And with that said, I as well would ask for you know, your parents, people you know, caring adults that are in your life, people who are of age to vote, that you support me on November 7th. I also will say something that might be not in my own best interest, but it's true, in that there is more than one seat open. There's 3 seats open. So you can also, you know, it's about, for me, people getting civically engaged, letting your voice be heard. So I think it's very important that, you know, I say that I want you to vote for me. You can vote for me. You can also vote for another candidate of your choosing. And people need to know that, because in the state of the nation being so polarized and people, a lot of intentional language trying to divide us, we need everyone's voice at the table, you know. Thank you.
Thank you.